What's up, everybody? This is Rob Sherman with Come Home, Michigan, and we are moving on to step number 7, the mortgage process. Today, I have Ian with me from Ruoff Mortgage. He's actually going to walk us through this because at this point in time, you're not working with me very much. You're working with Ian mostly, or somebody like Ian. I've kind of faded off into the distance, waiting for us to get our closing together. And Ian is the one that's going to walk you through this process so that we can get to a closing and get you closer to your keys. What's up, Ian? How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks, Rob. Yeah, everybody, this is Ian McLaughlin with Ruoff Mortgage. So Rob and I work together quite a bit, and we wanted to put this piece together for you guys so you really have a good understanding of what happens throughout the entire process, as there is a lot of information. I know Rob touched last on the appraisal piece, so kind of where we're at is someone like myself would have been ordering that appraisal for you. Typically it takes about a week or so for the appraiser to get out there, finish the report, and get it back to me. While that is happening, what is going on, right? That's kind of like the big question. There's a lot of like downtime in the mortgage world. So where we're at in the process is we are now getting your loan documents, or we have your loan documents, your pay stubs, your W-2s, your tax returns, what have you, and sending that file to underwriting, okay? Now, if you work with a direct lender like myself at Ruoff, we have in-house underwriting. So typical is going to be about a 1 to 2 day turn time for our underwriter to actually pick up your file, review all of the loan documents that you've submitted up to this point, and review your mortgage application. That's why it's also important to be honest and upfront on your application. So that way, when the underwriter does review it, it matches all the information that you've already given us. Once the underwriter reviews it, they're going to issue what's called a conditional loan approval. They've approved us for our loan, but there are conditions on there. They're usually giving us the list of items to get from you, to get from myself, the appraisal, title company. We gotta basically go through this list and check off all the boxes. So at this point in time, usually that same day we get the conditional loan approval, or the next day, depending on the timing, I am sending you a list of requirements that the underwriter is requesting us to meet. Our hopes is that in the next 3 to 5 days, you are getting us those documents back. During that time, we are also hopefully receiving the appraisal back. So that way, when we have everything ready, we can submit the loan back to underwriting and have them review it for a final time, which is going to then issue what's called a clear to close. That's everybody's favorite words. Clear to close is the 3 magic words in real estate. We're getting you guys done. We're setting a closing date. We are actually scheduling a time for you guys to sign on the dotted line. So what happens once we get your clear to close, we're going to issue what's called a closing disclosure. So law states that we have to review our fees with you 3 days before you can close on your mortgage. Okay. So we are going through this document called a closing disclosure 3 days before your actual closing. We are then also relaying the information to the realtors, to Rob, to let him know to give you a call, to give the call to the title company and schedule the time and the day that you're going to meet with everyone and sign on the dotted line. And then after that has been scheduled, the lender and the title company are going to bottom line your figures. We're going to figure out how much money you need to bring to closing, your final mortgage payment, when your first mortgage payment is due. And then I'm going to communicate all of that with you. So I'm going to review what we call the final closing disclosure. So you already saw one of these closing disclosures 3 days before your actual scheduled closing. This one's going to come out about a day or two before your final closing. That way we have everything finalized. The numbers can move a little bit from the time we get the initial closing disclosure out 3 days ahead of closing compared to the one that comes out a day or two. We do our best to make sure that those numbers are as accurate as possible when it first comes out, but sometimes they do move. So we are going to review final numbers with you, make sure everything's good to go. As long as you are okay with everything, you are then going to the title company at the scheduled time and signing your life away, getting that mortgage, getting that house, right? So that's basically the time from the appraisal to the actual scheduled closing is the underwrite piece. And that's the big key, is making sure that we're timely, we're getting the conditions that the underwriter is requesting back to us in a quick manner, so that way we can expedite everything. Again, if you work with a direct lender, they're all in-house. It's relatively easy to manage. If you work with a broker, they're going to use third parties for their services on that. So, but the biggest piece of the puzzle, guys, is always going to be the underwriter's decision. So obviously that is a key component to the lending.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Ian. So what I get out of that, as a layman, I don't do mortgages. You do. That's why I lean on you for all of this, is just be quick in your responses. Make sure that you're getting all the documents quickly, signing everything quickly, reviewing everything quickly, because, from my end, I wrote a contract, right? We wrote a contract earlier, and sometimes we put 30 days to close, 45 days to close. And you might think that 45 days is a long time. It's not a long time. 45 days is a very short amount of time when we've got all of these hoops to jump through. Yep. So to me, listening to everything Ian just said, it is sign everything, review everything, but sign everything quickly, and get documents to Ian quickly so that we can close on time without any delays.
Yeah, and the biggest part, at this stage of the game where we've already ordered the appraisal, we've already reviewed your mortgage application. We've gone through a loan estimate at this point. We've gone through numbers. We do have a good understanding of what we're going to bring to closing, what our monthly payment's going to be. And that's why it is very important for you to choose a very reputable company, a reputable loan officer. So that way your numbers that you have up front are either, as accurate as possible or even high-sided, right? My goal up front is to high-side all of your numbers. I would rather you see that your monthly mortgage payment is less than what I told you up front and your cash to close is less than what I told you up front, because it makes it easier. If it's the opposite, we're usually having a pretty lengthy discussion as to why and what can we do anything about it.
Yeah, and so this is one of the reasons, Ian, I wanted to stop you for a second, that I trust you so much, right? So I've dealt with other lenders, and they sell people, this is what this is going to be. They lowball the taxes just to get you in the door with them. It's like me as a realtor when someone wants to sell their house, right? And I know that house is going to sell for $200,000, but so that I get the listing, I'm like, no, I can sell your house for $300,000. And of course you're going to, without knowing what you're doing, of course you're going to go with the guy that says, I'm going to make you more money, or I'm going to have your mortgage be $300 less than that guy said. Well, in all actuality, they have no control over that stuff. It is, interest rates and taxes and all of that. They're just simply doing kind of a misservice to you by misquoting you in the beginning. So the reason I trust Ian so much is his quotes are always very accurate. And if they're not accurate, it was usually on the high side, and you usually end up paying less for your mortgage than he quoted in the very beginning. But he's keeping everybody safe. He's keeping everybody, in reality, making sure that we're doing this the right way and that you're not getting into a position that you're going to regret later on.
Yeah, big time. And it is, real estate and mortgages are very much of like a commodity. Rates are very similar from company to company. Closing costs are very similar from company to company. I'll never be the cheapest one out there, nor do I ever want to be. I think there's a value with what I do and what Ruoff offers. We're going to be very competitive. Just as if in real estate, somebody could say, I could sell your house for $250,000, but if the market doesn't allow for that, the data doesn't support that, your odds are actually getting that sale completed is slim to none. Yeah. Same goes for instance, if somebody were to offer some wildly low interest rate, everybody's buying the rates from the same bond market, and we're all relatively close. Again, we're not all going to be the same, and we're not going to all have the same closing costs at the end of the day, but no one's going to be a point or a half a point better than one another. It just doesn't really happen. But the biggest thing is we should have a good understanding of where the numbers are at, prior to this point. Really from this point on, when we're talking about after the appraisal's been ordered and an underwrite happening on your loan, we're literally just doing what the underwriter's telling us to do. Now, they might say we need a letter of explanation as to why the address on your driver's license is different than the address on your bank statement. Or we might need to source a large deposit in your bank account because we need to use those funds for closing, and it just says cash deposit ATM of $2,000. So we need to go through and find that information and get that information from the buyers quickly. All right. I said 3 to 5 days. I would like it in 1 to 2. And you also mentioned 30-day closings, 45-day closings. I'd be shocked if we even get that opportunity anymore in this type of a market, right? We have to write 30-day contracts to stay competitive. And in order for us to meet a 30-day contract, we have to move fast, because how many weekends are involved in that, right? Now, I have underwriters and processors that do work on the weekends, but they're not 9 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. They are working when they can. We all have lives just as everybody else does. And so we are hustling as fast as we possibly can to meet that closing date, but 30 days comes up super fast. So especially when you're waiting for 7-8 days on an appraisal, which we know can even take longer than that on sometimes. And that's out of our control. It's a third party that's managing that. During this time, you should be shopping for your homeowner's insurance as well. So there's that piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of things that go into it. The last thing we need to wait on is a source of a large deposit for a week. If we wait on that for a week, we can cost ourselves the home, because again, if it goes past that 30 days, we're kind of at the mercy of the sellers in that regards, especially now because it's such a hot market. So the biggest piece of it, guys, is really when your loan officer or myself or another loan officer says, hey, we need X, Y, and Z to get your loan approved, jump on it. Do it as fast as you possibly can and get that information back to the loan officer. Because the other piece of that puzzle is too, maybe we need updated bank statements from you. Now, all of a sudden, I get those updated bank statements and I see a large deposit on those, but the underwriter hasn't seen it. Well, I know that the underwriter is going to ask about that large deposit. So now I've just created a new condition for us based on the documentation that you've sent me. So that happens a lot too. We open up a can of worms based on sending new documents in. And the faster we can get ahead of that curve, the better. So, when we are asking for documents, 401k statements, what have you, get with your loan officer, have them on the phone, have them walk through exactly what's needed. So that way you don't work for a day getting all this information and you send it. And then all of a sudden we're saying we need more or we can't use it. That's another thing of that's an issue sometimes, is sometimes what you send you think we can use, but we really can't. And we have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and it can delay us. 1 to 2 days can really put a hampering on things. So always just try to react as quickly as possible, because the underwrite is the most important part. And honestly, it needs to go through as seamlessly as possible. So that way we have a smooth closing at the end.
Awesome. Well, Ian, thank you so much, man. I appreciate, you're always a wealth of knowledge. So I super appreciate you coming on here and taking your time to talk to everybody about this mortgage process.
No, of course, anytime. And of course, if there's any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help anybody. Can give me a call, shoot me an email. Rob knows this. I will work with you. Even if you're not working with me, half the time I'll answer questions for people. So I just try to help everybody out. My whole goal is to help people own a house, because I think it's helped me in my life. I know Rob's a huge advocate for it. He's done so much with real estate. It's amazing to watch him. And I always happy to help. So thank you, Rob, for having me.
Cool. Well, so check out the description to find a link to start a mortgage process with Ian. It'll be in the description to this video. Pay attention to social medias and our emails and whatnot for the next video in the home buying process. But until then, God bless. Thanks, guys.